in the tunnel, without any water to cool it down. Darkness, the echoing sounds of someone breathing heavily from far up ahead caught my ear. Jimmy? Is that you? But then I realized it didn't sound like a kid breathing. It sounded like someone much bigger. Most of the tunnel up until that point had been dark, but now it was getting to be completely pitch black. As I moved further into a section that had been covered with a wooden structure from the outside. It was meant to scare riders even further, I guess, since they would have just come from that last big drop at the point in the attraction to next be than it needed to be. My dim, crappy flashlight was now flickering.
We're gonna pack up. If you want, you can go.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Cool.
Now go on, baby.
You too, babe. I want to go to my dimension X Earth 2. Oh yeah. This is what I did. I created a world. And now, here we are. Press play.
It was dark. My mask light had given up.
Her brawn may as
Moments
well.
later, the strokes continued past me. Maybe it wasn't used to hunting humans.
Yeah,
Or
but
maybe it was taking its prey back to the nest. When I could no longer feel the strokes, I exhaled, coughing violently. My mouth tasted of blood. There was no choice left. I had to keep going with what little I had. I secured my mask and let my hands rest in the water for a moment. Just floating around in that little space was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Alien primal feeling. I'd been in trouble before, but nothing like that. Nothing even remotely like that. I slowed my breathing and took the plunge. To my surprise, there was one strange sensation I hadn't noticed. When the lights were off, it was easier to sense the current. Maybe it was a rely on other senses kind of thing, but it was much clearer. Even in the dark, I could feel the right way for me to go. A circulation of some kind coming from above. As I came to a branching tunnel, it was a bit harder to tell where I was supposed to go. I decided to just keep going up. So I did. The current was getting stronger, and all of a sudden I breached into another air pocket. But I could hear something, a metallic clinking. It didn't take me long to find it. Garrett's air tank. On one hand, I was incredibly lucky. On the other hand, that thing was close. Really close. I still had a little juice left in my air tank, so I hobbled forward. This air pocket was huge, more like a cavern. Ankle-deep water forcing me to walk and actually feel my body weight. I've never felt so heavy in all my life, and the equipment certainly didn't help. I was so tired I could have easily laid down and just died or slept, whichever came first. Instead, I pushed on with an extra tank in hand. I kept going further and further up. I started to hold my breath for as long as I could, using only what little air I had when absolutely necessary. I could feel more of those little fish rushing past me, sometimes with me, sometimes towards me. It dawned on me that they might be fleeing and pursuing predator, and that I was an idiot for not following them. Then again, they might just be following the current. There was no way to tell. I must have flailed around through several caves, passages, and tunnels for hours, using every air pocket I could find, and eventually just ditching my tank. All I had left was what scraps remained in Garrett's tank. Every foot started to feel like a death sentence, like I was digging my own grave. Maybe if we just stayed put in the first place, someone would have found us. Maybe being proactive was the wrong move. I was going upwards when I felt the air in Garrett's tank start to go bad. When I managed to breach into yet another air pocket, I just threw it aside. This was it. This was the end of the line. The tank clanged against the sides of the cave, and somewhere further in I heard a noise. A little gasp. Something had heard me. I stuck myself to the wall as I heard large, wet feet slapping against the cave floor. It had this strange, frog-like breath, like air pushing against a membrane. I was standing in a painful angle, putting all my weight on my healthy foot. It had It stopped. Listened. Blood dripping from my arm plopped against the water. Luckily, it didn't hear me or care. Instead, I heard a bone snap like a carrot. Then the sound of gnawing and eager suckling. I must have stood there paralyzed for at least half an hour. Then I heard it go down a side tunnel and disappear into the deep. This was my shot. I hobbled away only to step on something. A partly devoured foot. From that point on, it was just systematic and careful plunges. Follow the current for 30 seconds. If I couldn't feel a way forward, I turned back, caught my breath, and tried a different path. I was holding my breath so much that my chest had started to ache more than my foot. Still, I was making progress. Finally, I came to this large vertical chute. I felt a rush going upwards. There had to be something, anything. I held my breath for as long as I could, waiting for the surface, the air pocket. But this time, there was nothing. Dead end. I just slammed into a smooth surface, knocking myself over the head. A part of me wanted to scream so bad that air pushed out of my lungs. I could feel a cramp in my leg, pain as my body wrenched and turned. But the surface was smooth. Unnaturally so, almost metallic. I pounded it with my fist. It was thin but heavy. Definitely metallic, but with every pounding fist I could feel something else move. Something was coming up from below. It found me. It started with a tickle against my good leg. These little fingers tenderly wrapping themselves around my ankle, ready to pull me down. I didn't let it. I kicked, crawled, pushed myself upwards, and pounded the metal. A cramp in my arm forced me to scream. Something grabbed me from below, pulling me down at least 4 feet before I managed to kick myself loose. Gaining momentum, I flung myself upward again, crashing into the metal surface. But this time it buckled, just an inch, but it buckled. Suddenly there was light. Air. And whatever reached for me recoiled in fear. 4 men had moved what looked like a makeshift manhole cover out of the way, and they pulled me up. I didn't even notice I was breathing. I just forced air into my lungs so I could keep screaming. And screaming. And screaming. Turns out Nora made it to the surface. She'd lost a foot, but she'd made it. She'd been airlifted out and the entry was sealed. They tried to get another diving team, but there was no one else around. If they'd had more time, they'd have flown out another crew of 4 from Minnesota. I was down there for a total of 9 hours and 37 minutes. I had to sign a contract not to speak about this for 10 years. That time is up, and now I'm telling you what I know. Garrett died down there, and Nora was permanently maimed. I like to consider myself lucky, but I didn't come out of this unscathed either. I don't want to go into detail, but there are wounds not easily seen as a missing foot. This is in the warning signs, not to mention the armed guards. I've since moved on from diving. I can barely swim in a pool anymore. And honestly, I'm fine with that. Today's video was supported by the cordyceps fungus infecting humans and turning them into zombie-like creatures. But let me tell you, the real-life scenario is much more terrifying. I work in a lab that specializes in plant and fungi experimentation. Our primary focus is on developing new drugs for the pharmaceutical industry, including everything from anti-aging remedies to creating the next little blue pill. However, we also received significant funding from the Defense Department, and their research requirements are much more sinister. How are the new test subjects going? Steve, our lab supervisor, asked as he approached me, carrying a clipboard. He gestured towards the 8 test rooms in front of us. Number 4 looks promising, and I think 6 and 7 are starting to show signs, I said, looking up from my workstation. Inside the 8 test rooms were 5 men and 2 women, 1 in each room, plus a single empty room. It was left empty after a rogue chimpanzee from the earlier phase experiments had managed to escape its cage and break the pass-through window, which is used to transfer materials and instruments between sterile and non-sterile rooms. Stephen nodded, a look of excitement on his face. Excellent. We're getting closer. In the cages, test subject 1, 2, 3, and 5 appeared to be behaving somewhat normally, pacing their small 8x8 cage or talking to themselves. However, test subject 4 had remained motionless now for about 2 hours, lying on his side with his back to us, with his chest rising and falling, his only movements. Meanwhile, test subjects 6 and 7 had recently become lethargic, barely responding to the electric shocks administered to their enclosure. All of the test subjects had been exposed to a variety of chemically altered cordyceps fungus. Typically, cordyceps cannot infect humans due to our higher internal temperature, among other factors. However, by modifying the fungus's genetic makeup, we're close to changing that. Let's keep a close eye on those 3. Report back to me if there are any updates. Will do, I replied. With that, Stephen left the room and I returned to monitoring the test subjects' vitals on the screen. Interestingly, subjects 4, 6, and 7 had significantly elevated heart rates, almost 50% higher than the others. Additionally, their endorphin levels, the body's natural painkillers, were unusually high, indicating that they were experiencing intense pain despite showing none of the typical outward signs. What do you make of this? I asked my lab partner Mike while pointing to the screen with my pen. He looked over the vitals on my screen. It looks like they are in intense pain. Those sorts of levels would be what I would expect to see if someone were on fire, he said dryly. Yes, that's what it looks like to me as well. Our test subjects were some of the worst criminals our government had locked up. The advantage of working for the Defense Department, especially where we required human subjects, was there was no shortage of forgotten criminals. Terrorists, murderers, and other violent offenders. These individuals were typically housed in maximum security prisons and were serving lengthy life sentences often. While the use of human subjects in scientific experiments is controversial and subject to strict ethical guidelines, the Defense Department saw the need to conduct these tests outside the normal guidelines. Therefore, the rules no longer applied, and we had the green light to do whatever we needed to get the result. Let's do a blood test, see if the troponin levels have increased on subject 4, 6, and 7, I said to Mike. Mike nodded and left his seat to get dressed in his hazmat suit. With the heart rate and endorphin levels so extremely elevated, I thought it could be possible that the cordyceps is already spreading through the test subjects, paralyzing them while simultaneously causing immense pain. If my theory was right, then not only would we have successfully managed to infect the first ever human with cordyceps, but it would have taken effect within 3 hours of exposure. Cordyceps is a type of parasitic fungus that primarily infects ants, as well as other insects such as beetles and caterpillars. The infection process begins when a spore of the cordyceps fungus lands on the exoskeleton of an ant.
A classroom.
Once the spore is attached to the ant, it begins to grow long,
Magical school.
branching filaments that penetrate the ant's exoskeleton.
So what
start to
would
invade
this
its
be?
body. As the fungus
Classroom,
grows, it releases
staff
chemicals that
room.
alter the ant's behavior,
Not
causing
the
it to become
cafeteria.
disoriented in its colony. The fungus continues to grow inside the ant's body, eventually replacing its organs and tissues with a mass of fungal cells.
Not the dorms.
We're not stupid. We know exactly why the Defense
What
Department
would
want to
this be?
essentially weaponize this. We do this because we're scientists, and pushing the boundaries of human knowledge,
Classroom.
further understanding the world around
Staff
us is fundamental
room.
to our role.
The front desk
Now, fully
office.
suited up, Mike entered the first test subject's room, number 4,
What
and activated the cage
would it
squeeze function.
be?
The cage started to close in on the test subject, squeezing in from front and
What
back.
would this be?
This process meant Mike could get up and close to the test subject without risk to himself.
To walk.
But just as the cage closed in
What would
tight,
it
locking the subject in
be?
place, his skin burst from multiple areas and sharp, dagger-like spores fired out in all directions. Panicking, Mike turned and ran to the door he just came in through.
Gaming PC, no.
I reached for the emergency lockdown button to prevent him from leaving and hit it a second
Show
too late.
car, speaker,
Mike
box,
ran out to the connecting
no.
corridor, screaming in pain. Some
A
of the
2
spores had penetrated
area.
his suit and were now drilling their way into his body.
Yeah, a 2
As Mike
area.
screamed and clawed at the holes, ripping his
Perfect.
hazmat suit while trying to get them out.
Perfect,
I
perfect,
activated the alarms
perfect.
and locked down my door as Mike
A
thrashed about the
2
corridor.
area.
A few minutes later, I heard security come running down the hall and yell at Mike to
Perfect.
get down. But he was in too much pain to respond.
A 2 area of
The
the
security
school.
guards continued to yell at Mike, tasers drawn.
The
Mike
first
suddenly started
courtyard
running at
of
them.
the school.
Without flinching, both security guards tasered Mike, dropping him to the floor. They then slowly approached him to restrain him when suddenly Mike's body tore open and fired out more dagger-like spores. Impossible. I yelled at the camera as I watched both guards get hit by the spores. The cordyceps had multiplied and spread within minutes. The guards, now themselves in agonizing pain, ran back through the doors they'd come through and into one of the main lab halls where more than a dozen researchers were working. Watching through the cameras, I saw the researchers panicking and trying to escape via the now locked doors as the two security guards thrashed around. Then, just like Mike, the security guard's skin split open, firing multiple spores around the room. Most of the researchers had now been infected, and those that avoided being struck by the spores weren't so lucky a few minutes later, as more spores went flying around the room. Soon every researcher was infected, screaming and writhing in agony. I stayed in my locked room for hours, watching as the infected slowly stopped moving. One by one, they collapsed to the floor or the tabletops, and I watched in horrified amazement as fungal growths started to grow from the holes in their skin. I eventually put on a hazard suit, unlocked the door, and left the office, slowly walking towards Mike's still body. By now, he was covered in fungal stalks and mushroom-like
A
growths,
barn.
and one had even gone right through his eye socket, popping his eyeball out to the side. But that wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was his other eye, which was fixated on me. It had an expression of sheer terror and agony. He was alive, paralyzed, and appeared to be feeling every horrifying moment as the cordyceps slowly dissolved his internal organs and replaced them with fungal growths. "I'm sorry, Mike," I whispered, genuinely upset at his predicament. Mike was a good guy, but I knew I couldn't help him. The cordyceps devouring his internal organs as he lay there. So I did what any good scientist would do. I carefully took a sample of the growth from his eye socket and a blood sample. I then carefully attached a mobile heart rate monitor to his arm through one of the ripped holes Mike had made earlier, and then slowly backed away into the secure room, locked the doors, and awaited my rescue. The data I could get from Mike would no doubt prove invaluable for our next attempt. So here I wait. It has taken longer than I thought to be rescued. It has now been about 60 hours since Mike got infected. The bodies are now unrecognizable lumps of fungal growths, and Mike's heart finally stopped registering a pulse about 15 hours ago, which means he was alive for 2 whole days after the infection. He did seem to have multiple heart attacks during that time, no doubt from the pain of different organs turning to slush, but somehow he was kept alive. I have tried the internal lines multiple times, but no one is answering. It's probably a security protocol I'm unaware of. And I can't see the cameras outside this part of the facility. But I'm sure they're just taking extreme precautions. After all, the last thing anyone would want is for this to escape the lab. But I'm sure everything is fine. At least, I hope it is. It has now been 270 hours, or just over 11 days, since the first spores infected Mike. I have slowly accepted that help may not be coming, as some had suggested in the comments in my last post. So for the past few days, I've been planning my escape. I'm not sure what has happened outside my lab area or the conversations my superiors have been having, but I'm assuming it has been deemed too risky to attempt a rescue at this stage. There are still no internal comms working. The phones are down and the internet chat is disabled. Actually, that's not quite accurate. The phones don't seem to be technically down. It's more like no one's answering them. The only item that is working is this tablet, set up to share documents and files on our internet only, which I managed to jailbreak and connect to an external cell tower somewhere. Unfortunately, this section of the lab is located underground and there is no reception. Every now and then, however, it does connect with a single bar. It's a brief connection, usually only seconds. And while I did once manage to connect the call, it dropped out almost immediately. But it was enough to upload my last report online. And hopefully it will be enough to do it again. There have been a few developments in my current situation that I need to share. These developments have impacted some of my plans, and have also put me under some pressure to fast-track my escape. Firstly, our test subjects. As mentioned earlier, test subject 4 was the one that showed the earliest signs they were experiencing a positive reaction to the cordyceps, which was later confirmed. I know some of you will find my use of the term positive as an oxymoron, but from my point of view, that's what it was. Well, it seems the cordyceps compound had also worked on test subjects 6 and 7, though it took another 72 hours for that to be confirmed. They had both been lying almost completely still in their cages, the monitors displaying their vitals indicating they were still very much alive, and, like 4, in extreme pain. That's when 6 started to violently convulse, thrashing about his cell like a puppet being pulled by all the strings at the same time. Not long after, his head suddenly jerked back at a seemingly impossible angle, splitting him open at the neck as a long, wet fungal stalk pushed its way out of his throat. He collapsed on the ground and his vitals immediately flatlined, as the fungal stalk unfurled and stretched across the small cage. 7 was more interesting. Shortly after 6's head popped off, 7 started to convulse. But 7 somehow managed to regain some motor control, scratching at his eyes and managed to scream out, "Help me," before both his eyes were violently forced out of their sockets, as gray-green fungal stalks pushed their way through the path of least resistance. He continued to thrash and scream as his shirt rippled and moved, with dozens more stalks slowly ripping through the soft skin around his ribcage. 10 hours later, his screams had stopped, most likely due to the large stalk that had worked its way out of his mouth. The other subjects, 1, 2, 3, and 5, showed no signs of delayed infection. They died from having no access to food or water for 11 days, which, in hindsight, seems like a preferable way to have gone. They, of course, had no idea what had happened to the others, and had spent the first few days screaming and yelling for help, while trying to break out of their cages. I eventually muted their feed, but kept the visuals going in case a delayed infection presented itself. None did, though, which was a little disappointing. Also, on day 6, the power cut out. The backup generators kicked in, along with the emergency lighting, casting the hallways and labs in a slow, flashing, blood-red hue. Mike's disfigured body in the hallway and those of the guards and lab technicians in the main lab hall became an even more terrifying sight in the low-red light.
3-2-1 action.
It was fascinating and terrifying at the same time. The fungal stalk from his eye socket almost seemed like a snail's eye, moving around as the head slid like it was directing it as it went. But the thing that had worried me the most was the question. Why did it
This
stop
is
at
the
my door like
border
that? Could it
of
tell
the
it was in
school
here?
that I'm building now.
Would it try again?
You know
I started
what,
to plan my escape
Hogwarts?
at that point.
The wall
This
and
lab, as I
shit
have
of
previously
Hogwarts.
mentioned, primarily
The
focuses
border.
on drug development
Yeah.
for the pharmaceutical industry.
This is
The main building
where,
is a
you
two-story
know,
glass
the
brick
border is
building
gonna go.
located in the mountains,
Of
30 minutes
this
from the city outskirts.
magical academy.
The area I work in is located
Yeah,
30
I'm
meters
building a
directly
magical
below the main building.
academy.
There are two main ways out.
So, yeah.
The elevator, which goes straight up to the main building, and an emergency exit. The
Have my
emergency exit
bond
leads to a 2-mile-long
may
corridor,
well.
which eventually exits via a large metal door in the side of the mountain. To get to either of those exits, I need to get through the doors that the lab technicians were banging on before they were infected. Behind that door is a small hallway with a security desk that then leads to the lobby, a large pentagon-shaped room where the lift and emergency exit are located. 3 of the 5 walls of the lobby are colored: red, yellow, and blue. And they all lead through laboratories and testing rooms, just like the one I'm in. The other 2 walls in the lobby are white, with the reception admin area on one, and offices for the senior managers and supervisors on the other. The emergency exit is located between these 2 areas. I'm currently in one of the research rooms at the back of the yellow lab. The biggest hurdle in my escape plan so far is a large fungal mass against the door in the main lab hall. 2 or 3 bodies have become merged in a large clump of fungal matter, and it appears the bodies have, through what appears to be some sort of slimy mucus, become attached to the doors. The doors themselves will be unlocked now that the generators have kicked in, so at least it's not all bad news. The entire facility may still be in a code red lockdown, meaning I'm unlikely to receive a hero's welcome in the lobby, as no one will be there. The red and blue labs would have been evacuated once I activated the alarm, so I am unlikely to see anyone until I return to the main lab above ground. I'm going to put on my hazmat suit and leave the safety of my office now. The suit is equipped with a camera and a voice recorder, so I will be recording everything on that from now on, in case something goes wrong. I have downloaded all the data from our experiments onto a flash drive, which I will be taking with me. I also plan on trying to collect some samples on the way if it's safe to do so. So I will have a small bag with plenty of sample tubes, swabs, and tongs. I just heard some banging in the ducts. What sounded like something crawling quickly in there. So it's time for me to get out of here. Wish me luck. No. The following was transcribed from a voice recording that was uploaded to the web. Okay, suits on, voice recorder working, camera.
This should be the cafeteria
Of course it isn't. Oh, that's
of
annoying,
the
but
academy.
not much I can do about it now. Okay, got the flash drive, check. Bags and tubes, check. Alright, I guess I'm ready. I'm Dr. Sean Johnson, lead mycologist in the cordyceps trial here at... Oh, damn it. Sorry, I just knocked over a tray table. Where was I? That's right, it's currently 8:46 p.m. on the 17th of July, 2023. I am currently located in a top-secret underground research laboratory where there's been an incident that has resulted in many fatalities. I'm about to leave the safety of my secure room and make my way back to the lobby. Then hopefully up the elevator and back to the main lab building above ground. I'm making this recording, well, firstly as a record of what I see out there to assist with my future research, but also as evidence. There'd be spots where we'd have to wade through water that would reach over our knees, so we had to keep as dry as possible. It was a pain to walk through, and I could feel a rash growing on my thigh within the first 15 minutes of walking. We reached our first site at 7 a.m. Camilla brought out the testing equipment. She and Raj took turns calling out what kinds of samples they were getting, while Helene recorded it all on her laptop. I cataloged and stored everything. It took us about 30 minutes all in all. As we packed up to move to the second site, Camilla pointed out something in the undergrowth. Lots of animals here, she said. Look. She pointed at the ground, but I saw nothing. I shrugged. How do you say it? Hjortan? Helene, what's that in? Cloudberry. Right. There should be cloudberries here. See the petals? What the hell is a cloudberry? Chuckled Raj. great jam, added Helene. Maybe we'll see some further along, said Camilla, where there's less animals. It took us another 4 hours to get to the second site. We spun around in circles for a while and had to get the sat-nav to find our way back. Standing out there with water up to my knees looking for those orange flags. It was scary. Camilla seemed confident, though. At worst, we'll just go straight southwest, she said. As long as we can see the sun, we can navigate. Sure enough. When we got to the second site, there was a stretch of dry ground where we could rest. We stopped for lunch. Helene set up a portable stove to make us some coffee while Camilla and Raj got some samples. Soil, water, vegetation, all kinds. Still nothing, said Camilla, poking around the moss with her feet. No Hjortron. Cloudberries, Raj added. Right, cloudberries, all gone. Is that strange? I asked. Sort of. Reindeer usually don't go out this far. We finished up and moved to Site 3. We were finished just after dinner time. We had a few more hours until sunset, so we decided to move north. Camilla and Helene had mapped out a place where we could get some more reliable samples, and it'd be just a few hours off the trail. There'd be plenty of dry land to set up camp as well, so it didn't mess with our schedule too much. When we stepped off the trail and left the orange flags behind, I got this itch along my spine, like I was stepping into something out of my control. Those little flags were the only trace of civilization left. Without them, we were in the deep wilds. And still, no cloudberries. We set up camp around 8 p.m. The sun was getting low, but we had plenty of flashlights with us. We changed our clothes, set up our tents, and crawled into our sleeping bags. Camilla read an article on erosion, and Helene uploaded her best images to Instagram. Even now, we still had great cell phone coverage. Raj was taking notes and double-checking our batteries. I twisted and turned back and forth for hours, but I just couldn't get any shut-eye. My eyes kept popping back up. Long after the others were asleep, I was still up. It was useless to keep trying, so I decided to walk it off. I stepped out of the tent and wandered around for a while. The horizon was blood red, and the sparse trees cast long, gangly shadows across the camp. A thought hit me. We'd forgotten to set up the mosquito lights. This place ought to be flooded with mosquitoes, but there was nothing. It was all quiet, not a bird, not an insect, nothing. Just creaking branches carefully swaying in the wind. Compared to what we'd felt when we first stepped into the mire, this was dead. It was almost midnight when I saw something in the distance. There was this long stretch of ankle-deep moss water next to our campsite. I looked out across it for at least 10 minutes before I realized that one of the trees was not a tree. It was a reindeer. The thing had been standing perfectly still, not even moving its head. I'd mistaken its antlers for branches. I sat there looking at it for at least half an hour, and in all that time it didn't move a muscle. Not a twitch of the neck, nothing. Never seen anything like it. Eventually, I got back in my tent. I barely got any sleep. The reindeer was gone by morning. I told Camilla about it, and she insisted that they were skittish creatures. They'd stay away from us. Maybe it was just curious. We got the extra samples early in the morning and started to move east towards our main route. By then, we all had soggy feet and a sour mood. Camilla and Raj had a long, intense discussion about preservation efforts and EU regulations, while Helene kept stopping to take pictures for her Instagram. At around 9 a.m., we all heard something in the distance. The discussion died down as we all tilted our heads and listened. At first, I thought it was a wounded animal. There was this rising and falling squeal like a big bird call. It took us a few seconds to realize that it was a person. A monotone scream over and over. The exact same pitch and tone. This desperate, heart-wrenching death scream. Help, said Helene. Someone's calling for help. We circled back and tried to locate the sound, but it just seemed to get fainter and fainter, as if whoever called for us moved further away. We tried yelling back, but they didn't seem to get any closer. After about half an hour, we couldn't hear them anymore. Raj was visibly shaken, his cheeks flushed and eyes watery. sense of it, saying it might have been an animal. But we couldn't figure out which one. Still, it had to be an animal. It had to be. As we made our way forward, we shared our thoughts. There were a lot of things out there that didn't add up. No birds, no insects, no animal droppings or markings. It felt off. We found our way back to the main route with the orange flags. Following them, we spotted something that would come to haunt us forever. On the path ahead was this large, overarching tree, much larger than others in the area. And from the tree hung no less than 4 reindeer carcasses. They were seemingly placed there, the antlers tangled into the branches. Dry and tattered flesh dangled like sick fruit. Hooves gently tapping against one another in the mild breeze like a nightmare wind chime. Helene put away her phone and Camilla stared, slack-jawed. Raj looked at me for reassurance, but I had none to give. Camilla tried to say something, but lost the words along the way. Composing herself, she gave it one last try. Sometimes the bears, they hide their prey. This isn't hiding, said Raj. This is full display. I don't know what to tell you. We looked around, spotting strange markings on the bark. Mostly hoof marks, but also something else. We were all shaken after seeing it. It haunted me. I could almost imagine hearing the dead hooves if I stopped to listen. Helene had gotten her phone back out, didn't look up from it. We got to Site 4 at 1 p.m. Same procedure as always. Camilla and Raj took the samples, Helene took notes, and I cataloged and stored it. We had a late lunch, but couldn't find anywhere to set up the kitchen to make coffee.
This should be the actual school.
Sparse.
This part
Following
here.
the orange flags, we had to stop several times
This
to navigate.
big building here
We
will
were coming
be
up on
the
what should be a
actual
large lake, but there was
school.
nothing there. A slope into more
School.
moss with no trees.
You know,
If anything, it
the
looked like the water
actual
had
school
drained.
part.
Helene took some pictures,
Of
but
the
Camilla was
academy.
convinced we were off track. There was no way a lake would disappear on its own. We
There'll
had
be
to
a
go
courtyard.
no matter what the sat-nav was telling us.
Boys'
Still, we
dorm.
followed the flags. And just past 2 p.m., we got to this enormous open space where the trees spread out.
This should be the
We could see for
girls'
miles ahead.
dorm.
And somewhere out there, we heard it. Again, someone calling for help. The same monotone scream, the same pitch. This time, we didn't call
This should
back.
be the girls'
Instead, we
dorm.
just stood there listening. We identified at least 2 sources, one to the northeast, one to our west. The screams were coming from 2 completely different directions. It has to be a bird, said Camilla. Mating callers, that's not a fucking bird, whispered Helene. That's a person. What's more likely, Helene? Asked Camilla. That a pair of identical twins are following us and calling out to us, or that we're hearing the echoes of a nesting bird? I don't think anyone here is an ornithologist, said Raj, so we can't tell for sure. Yeah, I don't think that's a person. It's saying help. Birds can't pronounce L or P. Say what you want, but that's something else. We went through Site 5 and stopped for the night halfway to
This
Site
should be,
6.
you know, the girls'
I was getting
dorm, like I
nervous.
said.
I kept imagining that repeated call for help out
And
in the environment.
then over there
I
will
thought I
be
saw
the
aliens
guys'
among the dead
dorm,
trees a few times.
the courtyard, another
Site 6 was our
courtyard,
furthest point before we started to circle back.
and then the actual
This was
school.
dangerous territory. One sprained ankle could mean aborting this whole
So yeah,
expedition.
courtyard.
The orange flags had stopped some time ago. They didn't reach across our whole route. We were on our own from this point forward.
LeBron.
Camilla was confident, though, and with only 3 more
So,
sites to go, we
yeah.
were ahead of schedule. There was barely enough dry land for us to set up our
Gang
tents, but we made
gang.
it work. The ground was moist, and I had a puddle of something cold next to my feet. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. I collapsed into an uneasy but welcome sleep. Raj gently shook me awake sometime in the middle of the night. He held a finger to his lips and motioned his hand to his ear, as if telling me to listen. There was that scream again, and it was much closer. I dressed myself and got out of the tent. Camilla and were already up. We all huddled together at the edge of our camp, looking out across the mire. It was too dark to see, but the screamer couldn't be far off. Camilla held up her flashlight and gave us a nod. We nodded back. We had to see what this thing was. She turned on the flashlight. There were a dozen reindeer about 60 feet ahead of us, all standing at the exact same angle, looking directly at us. No one blinking, moving, or recoiling from the light. We all froze, not wanting to make any sudden movements. These were supposed to be timid woodland creatures, but something was off. One of them slightly opened its mouth, stared at us, and called out in a perfectly human, "Help." Helene covered her mouth, holding back a scream. The reindeer, one by one, called out to us, all with the same mechanical movements and identical voice. "Help." It was fucking eerie. Raj decided enough was enough and got up. He tried to make himself big, stretching out his arms and waving them up and down. He huffed and yelled, trying to